to develop a fundamental barrier of First Nations designated for CRUs. And then we face that in research. It is that Canada, in a fundamental conflict of interest, controls the funding, and we've said that for many years. I think even Mr. Sky, who sits back there too, knows all too well about how the government of Canada controls everything. And then a push for the independent center is something that has been on our scope for many, many years. And hopefully with the help of AFN, this can become a reality. Might not be in my lifetime, but hopefully our kids. AFN and Canada are involved, like I said, in this joint process for a specific claims reform and policy, and Canada is committed to creating an independent center for resolutions for these specific claims. AFN has created a proposal for the center based on extensive engagement with the First Nations in 2017, 2019. The proposal is based on 4 key principles of fairness for the creation of the independent center. One is the honor of the Crown. The specific claims process must be consistent with the honor of the Crown. 2, independence of all aspects, claims resolution, the funding and oversight of the claims must be handled independent of Canada. And then recognition of the Indigenous laws. The Independent Center will support the recognition of the laws, legal orders, and dispute resolution mechanisms as articulated by participating in with First Nations. The recognition of First Nations laws may impact the conduct of adjudication, dispute resolution, mediation, and negotiations. And the 4th one is no arbitrary limits on compensation. And in October or November, I'm going to be attending a national claims research workshop, which is going to be held in Ottawa. And just some of the topics there are just going to be we assembled some of the research experts from all regions right across Canada to share, I guess, recent developments, information on management, oral history, legislative initiatives, research practices, case law. You know, it's well attended by a lot of our experts right across the country. And hopefully we get to and share some of the information that's collected over there as well. And then a lot of it is housed in our national claims research page, which is accessible by anybody who has internet. But with that, I don't want to take up too much time because Len is falling asleep here. But with that, I want to say Miigwetch to everyone. Oh, Miigwetch.
Oh, Miigwetch. Now I'll put you to sleep. How about that? Bonjour. Kikino Ma De Win Education Unit is going to provide us update. We focus on all levels of education from early years to post-secondary. Grand Council Treaty 3 and its unit works with the Education Committee, comprised of all the directors of education and education counselors from each First Nation at Grand Council Treaty 3. And we also work with our partners, AKRC, Bimose, and 7 Generations, and working with ISK and the EDU, the Ministry of Education. I'm going to just skip forward to a little bit. To some of our key objectives is to provide education that enhances the abilities of our members to succeed in the Anishinaabe Nation and society at large, and first and foremost to preserve the Anishinaabe in the student, to clarify relationships between Grand Council Treaty 3 and its communities and the governments in Canada, to harmonize the administration of the Anishinaabe law and education, and administration of the laws in education. So some of the activities that we had so far is Grand Council 3 Education Committee meeting. The recent one we had was in August 22nd. It was recently, so it was limited attendance, unfortunately, but some of the key topics that were brought up were post-secondary funding and the need for it to be reviewed and looked at, and so that with the the rising costs of post-secondary education and cost of living, that the current funding criteria is not that fair or equitable. There was a post-secondary meeting back in September 19th. Some of the feedback that was available at the time of this report wasn't collected yet, but one of the things that they are looking at are presenting to the Indigenous Service Canada is the fact that rising costs and costs to the student and the cost of living is higher, so that it should reflect, our post-secondary funding should reflect that in a fair and equitable way. The Indigenous Service Canada, along with the unit, are planning in-person K-12 funding formula side-by-side session in November or December. In person, right now, First Nations can sign up in the Thunder Bay and Toronto. They have October sessions, but we're hoping for those people that can't make that we'd have a session specifically for Grand Council Treaty 3 in order for the First Nations to sit down with their side-by-side funding. And our core funding, again, covers our education unit salaries, our cultural protocols, our governance meetings, travel, our 10 education committee meetings, and our participation in the 4 school boards that we work with, Rainy River District School Board, Q8 and Patricia District School Board, Kenora Catholic, and the Northwest Catholic School Board, all which reside on our Grand Council Treaty 3, our Treaty 3 nation. We also have our Education Partners Program that has recently been reviewed, and we now have a education team. We were down to 1 for our education team, and now we have a full complement of education policy analyst, which is Cassandra Bunce, and then we have an administration assistant, Dawn Seymour, and then we have our EPP coordinator, Bradley Anderson. So with that team, we're slowly addressing some of the issues that we had in education with ensuring that we're not missing any deadlines, we're not missing any funding opportunities that come our way. So the EPP coordinator started in early August and September. He's currently working on completing past due reports and then submitting the EPP distribution for the participating partners in the EPP program, which include 7 Generations and their First Nations, AKRC, their First Nations, and then the Bimose and their First Nations as well. So there's an opportunity to really get some funding. That's through $350,000 that's pending ED approval. We restructured that and looked at ways that we can utilize those funds towards traditional and cultural practices to be divided through the First Nations that are involved in that program. Upon reviewing funding proposals for Indigenous Service Canada, it was noted that traditional and cultural practices was a major area that was lacking and wanted by the First Nations that are in the partnership with us. Again, post-secondary student funding program is being, the model is being looked at to revise it. Let's see. We also have our Indigenous Education Policy Analyst working on our First Nation and Inuit youth employment strategies. Cassandra Bunce has been working to address some of the delinquent reports that we have, updating the new proposals and applications so that we continue with giving services to our First Nations with youth employment opportunities, like summer employment, skills link development, and summer work experience. The work continues. Indigenous Service Canada also, we have a couple of regional education agreement funds, and then some of that deferred finance. The funding there is, we have some, sorry, got tongue-tied there. We have deferred plans, and we're looking at current allocation that needs to be initiated so that we can utilize those funds and hopefully have another support employee that would be a regional education coordinator. And that way we can limit the opportunities that are slipping through our fingers because of so much gaps in employment, is a good way to say it. Let's see, I'm just trying to skip so I don't take too much time. Okay, and then we have Ministry of Education that provided funding for us towards student mental health funding. This is a application process that we can apply for yearly. This year our allocation was $320,000. Unfortunately, this funding is for Ontario First Nations only. We're looking to see how we can support the other two First Nations from the Manitoba area. But with this funding, it's for the 26 First Nations that are connected with Ontario schools. It's going to be supported in the fact that we can give not much, but some funding for cultural support programs aimed at improving student mental health. Could be existing cultural programs that you have, like a language program after school, drumming, or anything cultural that would give the students something to do that's more cultural and make sure that they know who they are as Anishinaabe students to improve their mental health. And that funding should be distributed soon. We also have the JFK Education Law Strategic Planning Sessions. This is moving very slow. We still have work to do in where our next steps are going. We're looking for guidance from our Grand Council Treaty 3 and also our Education Committee. We had a education emergency chiefs meeting in Prior Lake, Minnesota, and it was mentioned there that we really need to make sure that our laws and our culture and what we want is at the forefront of our education law, that we shouldn't be being told what it should look like, but we should be guiding that work. Some of the highlights that we were trying to follow up from last year were elders endorsement, a language model. It was a program that we were trying to do that was going to try to have first language or fluent language speakers in our provincial classrooms, which is related to our resolution that we had at our last fall assembly. Right now we have some issues with that. The Ontario College of Teachers was to support that program, and right now they're reluctant to fully commit to embracing that project. And also a couple of external organizations have tried to hijack, I guess is a good word to say, as their own project that they're going to use separately. So KPDSB, Kenora Catholic, and they're trying to partner with Seven Generations and try to make that their project. But they are also on Grand Council Treaty 3 land, so that we definitely should have a say in that. So Right now, that program has stalled because, like I said, the Ontario College of Teachers is reluctant to fully commit to endorsing that project. Land-based education is a priority for most of our schools that I've been visiting and that First Nations want as a priority. So we're continuing to make sure that's offered at the provincial schools and on our First Nations schools as well. Right now we have the Rainy River District School Board, the Northwest Catholic, Kenora Catholic, and KPDSB. We're part of the Indigenous Education Advisory Committee for representation, but I've been finding that sometimes there's very little community representation on those committees. So sometimes there's a lone voice when they are presenting on projects they want to do. And without those voices, they use that committee as their green light to do the programs that they want. And sometimes it's very little of Indigenous collaboration on those, and especially when they're on Treaty 3 territory. I think it's important for us to have a little more representation on those committees. I'm working to get a list of the Education Committee members, if they want to be part of those IAC meetings, that I'll give a list of dates and times when there are presented. Just so you know, I have been very vocal about our wants and needs. So they've changed the days that they have their IAC meetings. They used to be at night, and now they changed them to the day, which makes it difficult for some of us to attend because we are working for the First Nations, and it's hard for us to attend those daytime meetings. And just lastly, the resolution CA 2318 about our language and the use of fluent and first language speakers teaching Anishinaabe Moem in provincial schools. It has been shared with all the local school boards in the IAC meetings, the Indigenous Education Advisory Committee meetings, with Northwest Catholic, Kenora Catholic, KPDSB, and Rainy River School Boards. Updates on progress are ongoing. One of the excuses they have is that they have human resource issues, union issues, when they have hiring practices. The First Nation community collaboration is essential when filling these positions. We have had Rainy River say that they will commit to advertising for language positions on First Nations from now on. So moving forward, when they have a language teacher position, they are going to forward it to Grand Council 33 so we can distribute it to the First Nations to find actual fluent language speakers of Anishinaabe Moem. Because right now, a lot of times they will post it, no one that's fluent will apply, and then they will hire a non-Indigenous person that's not fluent to teach Ojibwe, as long as they have an Ontario teacher's certificate. So that being said, that's one of the obstacles that we need to do, and so I'm always recruiting and trying to get our Indigenous youth that are graduating to consider teaching as a profession and taking their language as a valuable asset forward so that they can become our language teachers. That we're getting our language teachers from our own communities, teaching our own language to our own people. That being said, I'll just leave it at that. All right, Miigwetch for your time.
So I'll get into the next presentation, which is the Justice Department. At our cultural chiefs meeting, I was told that my department update was long, so I just put it on a PowerPoint for y'all. Okay. So over the last 17 years, our department has really developed and grown. We have offices within Kenora, Fort Frances, and Dryden, and satellite offices in Wabsamung, Grassy Narrows, Lac Seul, and Whitefish Bay. So we kind of touched, Treaty 3 Police touched on this earlier, but so the Treaty 3 Police Services contract is in negotiations. They got a one-year contract that is, going in one-year contract, which will end in this fiscal year, and they are looking to negotiate a new engagement. So part of our recommendations is to continue to support the negotiations and with their Treaty 3 Police Services Board and support in addressing priority areas as mental health, operational budget increases, revisions to restrictive FNIPP terms. Next topic is Community Safety and Policing Act. So background in June 2022, Special Chiefs meeting discussed the adoption of the Community Safety and Policing Act. The goal is to secure Treaty 3 Police Services recognition as an essential service similar to OPP, ensuring enhanced service provisions and formal status under Ontario's policing framework. PricewaterhouseCoopers was engaged to facilitate community engagements, and they talked about this earlier. They'll be coming into the communities to see how the communities want to see policing in Treaty 3. So with the CPSA in effect as April 1st, Treaty 3 Police now has the opportunity to redefine its service model, so that's why they'll be engaging with the communities. So the first person session engagement occurred September 24th in Miigwetch, and our Justice Department showed up and had a booth, and we're just really looking to support them in the community and making sure there's communications and people are seeing that these engagements are happening and that we're involved. So I'm just going to go into the tripartite collaboration table. So in 2021, the tripartite collaborative technical table on enforcement and prosecution of First Nation laws was established to address the longstanding issues surrounding the enforcement and prosecution of First Nation laws in Ontario. The Chiefs of Ontario federal and provincial governments was designed to create protocols for working with Ontario courts on the prosecution of First Nation laws. So recommendations to advocate for permanent establishment of First Nation prosecution pilot with expanded resource to cover more First Nation communities, collaborate with CU and federal provincial governments to ensure that enforcement and prosecution of First Nation laws are prioritized in future legal reforms, and continue legal advocacy to amend the CSPA discriminatory provisions and ensure the inclusion of First Nation laws in mandatory police functions. So OPP Indigenous Advisory Circle. The circle is to enhance communication and collaboration between Indigenous communities and the OPP. July 2023 meeting focused on MMIWG 2S Task Force, introduction of new communication protocols for victims and investigations, review of the Northwest OPP Advisory Circle. Another critical point of focus has been the OPP's overall strategic plan, specifically regarding the relationship between the OPP and tribal policing agencies. The review of the OPP strategic plan has been postponed to accommodate further input and preparation from the IAC. So recommendations we have is to enhance OPP connections with Indigenous communities through open dialogue, cultural sensitivity training, and addressing issues like MIWG, ensure communication protocols for victims and families are culturally sensitive, providing timely and respectful updates, focus on integrating Indigenous community needs, especially tribal policing agencies in future strategic plan reviews, align goals across all Indigenous advisory circles during the September 2024 gathering to foster collaboration and shared objectives, include a social department MIWG worker in the next advisory circle meeting to inform discussions with frontline perspectives. So program-related initiative updates. So our department, we have mostly frontline workers within different restorative justice programs, and so we work all over the place. So some of our key partnerships and initiatives is working with Boer Alaskan Law faculty to develop Gladue curriculum for legal professionals and students to deepen understanding of Indigenous justice, We secured funding for an additional youth reintegration worker in Dryden to support youth reentering the community post-justice system involvement. We secured positions in the NILO program for 2 for Kenora, 1 in Fort Francis to support Indigenous inmates. And we secured a community reintegration program partnering with CMHA and Solgen to assist individuals reintegrating after custody. Other activities is we're applying for funding to hire policy analysts from the Call to Action 50 to advance Indigenous law revitalization by integrating traditional laws and enhancing self-determination in justice matters. We have upcoming GLADU forums, one in Dryden, Fort, and Kenora, and we're gathering feedback on Indigenous overrepresentation from justice professionals. We're also working with Miigwetch 7 to develop a database for statistical reporting on client file management aligned with Treaty 3 data governance, which we can share with other, like the goal is to share with other departments, so for advocacy efforts regarding homelessness, mental health issues, because we do see that when we're working with our clients. And we're also working with the John Howard Society to provide, they're gonna do program eval and provide training materials which we can share with the communities. So the Kenora Justice Center, between July to mid-September, statistics show 46 first appearances, 25 cases concluded, and 5 restorative justice circles conducted. We have case managers who support our clients' trauma-informed services and access to community resources. There's cultural initiatives. We'll have a fall feast here soon, language workshops, and more community engagement. And we have more training engagement, which we post online for you to see, or we have our senior coordinator here at the back if you have any questions for her. And ignore the picture. I didn't put that on there, but thank you, Emily, for doing this for me. Thanks. Thank you. It's my first time presenting, so thank you for being kind.
Okay, so I will be presenting the Indian Residential School Wisakwatatuwin Department Update. Some of our key objectives is that the Indian Residential School Health Support Program was notified that all of the IRS funding is approved until June 30th of this year, and that was completed in July 2024. The Indian Residential School in Treaty 3, we're hoping to help by addressing the historical and ongoing trauma experienced by the Anishinaabe people. We are also hoping to start raising more awareness for the 60 Scoop as we aim to promote understanding, empathy, and healing for the survivors and their families. Part of our program update is the Indian Day School class action commenced January 13th, 2020. The 3-year claim period closed as of January 2024. No new claims are being accepted, but if there are missing pieces to the applications, they are still allowing clients and everyone to send in missing information. We also had the Indian boarding home class action open up as of August 21st of this year, and the claim process will be closed as of February 22nd, 2027. The department is dedicated in supporting all 28 communities through this application process. We have reached out to the communities as well as the chiefs offering assistance. We have been to at least 4 communities so far since it is opened in August, and we look forward to helping more communities with that as well. Some of our activities that we've done so far this year is the spring feast ceremony in Kenora. We helped out with the IRS gathering in Kuchaching. We helped with the economic department on that one. We also assisted in the Healing Your Spirit powwow in Wishishkanigam this summer. We also did a 60 Scoop event in Kenora, and the like I mentioned before, the Indian Boarding Home Class Action information sessions. We hosted one online with one of the lawyers to help inform people as well as attending the communities. We, as a team, went to Brainerd, Minnesota to do some medicine picking, some of the staff training and capacity building. We did the National Advisory Committee on Residential School Missing Children and Unmarked Burials, the knowledge exchange on putting ground penetrating radar in Ottawa. We also did Together We Are Standing with Survivors that took place in Thunder Bay. Another one that took place in Thunder Bay was Knowledge is Sacred, Truth is Healing. We have also done the Resolution Health and Cultural Worker Training in Thunder Bay, which was a training program focused on health and cultural issues within Treaty 3. I also have an update for our Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls program, as it was recently combined with our Indian Residential School Department. Some of the key activities that we have done in the past has been the MMIWG Summit and Awareness Walks and events, the community outreach and engagement, training and development, resource development, networking, Cruiser of Hope campaign, sharing circles, and support for survivors and families. Future projects and program support. The statistics and data gathering, organizing walks and events, partnering with various organizations to raise awareness through walks and events, expanding the LGBTQ2S+ inclusivity, community outreach initiatives, and building and encouraging self-confidence and resilience. And I think that's everything I got.
All right, that concludes all of our cultural chiefs updates. No questions or anything like that?
Bonjour. Hello. Bonjour, Cassandra Case Wasteman, Indigenous Cause, Addictin Dodem, Mantubo with the Gong and Donji. I just have a question for Len. It says that you guys are experiencing like a stall on the action to get Indigenous or first language speakers into the school. And you said there's some sort of basically kind of like a toe stepping on situation going on with 7 gens.
Oh.
And
that's sorry, there's 2 projects that are going on. One was initially we were approached to try to, let's see, I can't remember. Romaine Mitchell is a superintendent he works for the Indigenous Office of the Ministry of Education. And he had piloted a program based on the Inuit language near the Ottawa area, where the Ontario College of Teachers recognized an elder circle of choosing suitable candidates for language speakers. So this elder circle was to choose candidates, and then once they were chosen, they were tested by the elders, and then OCT recognized them as language speaker teachers.
And they were certified
And they
through
were
that.
certified through that program. So we were trying to do the same thing. And then as we were going through that process, KPDSB, Kenora Catholic, and 7 Generations kind of started that process on their own. And so then that kind of, I said, and then my take on that was I said, well, you guys are doing that, but most of the schools and what you guys are doing is on Treaty 3 territory, and we're the language holders, so we should be involved in this. And then turned out OCT during the meeting said, well, we don't really recognize this. This is the first time we're hearing about it happening in Ontario.
Sorry, 7 Gens is, I thought that they were running a program currently this school year in order to do that, right? In order to certify a group of elders?
Yeah, they've always had like a language teacher program.
And are those people then recognized under the Ontario College?
When they graduate, they should be
Certified.
recognized. But this one's separate from that. This is like an elder circle where
they do the
where
certifying themselves
the
rather
elders
than.
would do the certifying themselves,
Okay.
and then they'd be recognized by OCT.
And then I guess a separate sort of question is, like I know Rainy River First Nations, our kids attend the Catholic. That was just kind of an initiative that was just started by, 2 or 3 people. Is that like I don't see what the holdup kind of is with all these other school boards also doing the same thing. Like the person who's in the class is not certified. He's not certified under the Ontario College by any means. Why is that not able to happen in every single school?
I know sometimes it's how they advertise. So I don't want to throw KPDSB under the bus, but I am going to throw them under the bus. When they advertise on their website only. So if you don't go on their website looking for a job, if you're a fluent language speaker, you're going to miss the deadline and you're not going to be able to apply.
Is that something then that Grand Council is able to do, is to find their own people within the regions of that and kind of like, here you go.
So that's that's one of the plans, is to get a list of qualified language speakers and then try to get them recognized. Like right now, there's a letter of standing you can get, but you then are like sometimes those people with the letter of standing are under what's called A0 on the grid. They get paid the least amount, right? But yet there are language speakers and they should be recognized. I was part of I know we're not really part of the Chiefs of Ontario, but I was part of a working table that went and lobbied for our language speakers and our knowledge keepers to be recognized as our PhDs, as our valuable knowledge keepers.
Yeah.
And they should be paid as such and recognized as such. And in that whole process, that was one of the issues, is that when they get hired by, say, provincial school board, they're put on this grid and they don't make very much. So another community, like say south of the border, like in the U.S., we have some Grand Council Treaty 3 members that are working in U.S. as language speakers because they get recognized, they get paid well for their ability, for their skill.
So this language retention, then that all falls under education currently? There's no committee specifically for Grand Council dedicated to language?
Not really, no.
Okay.
Not dedicated. But the province gets money for language revitalization. And so that's the part that I'm trying to get. If you're part of a language revitalization and EDU is funding you to have like language speakers in your classroom, then you should be trying to get language speakers in your classroom, not non-Indigenous people teaching the language.
All right, that's all. Miigwetch.
Miigwetch.
Mike, come in the back.
Bonjour. Bonjour and Denaway Magnetuk, Sagachawe, Indigo, Bijun Dotem, Kuchning Donji. I just want to make a comment and a suggestion. We as Anishinaabe people are a kind people, a grateful people. And when I heard Larry speak about some of those people that for decades have worked for Treaty 3, the 2 ethno-historians that might be retiring, I would just like to suggest, that at some point at an assembly or something, that we bring them in and honor them for decades of their work that they did on behalf of all of us at Treaty 3. Tim Holscam and Leo Weisberg were there for a long time, and I remember, seeing Leo in the office there on the CJ property there, working, with Andy and Don Jones, he was a TAR director, you know, for a long time. I just think that it would be nice to say thank you to them, Miigwetch.
Thank you. Any other questions or? Okay, Chief Allen here, then I'll, Chief Allen. Mic 4.
Buju, I'll be the last question or last speaker before we end for the day. As far as education, you mentioned the student mental health funding will be available March. Is that what you anticipate?
Actually, it should be hopefully by the end of October. There's an increase in the number of students utilizing the cultural activity. So if you had an after-school language program, you put down how many students started. So if there's 4 that started, but then at the end of it you have 8, then you write down that, you know, you saw an increase in the number of students utilizing that cultural activity.
Okay, Miigwetch.
Last question. Microphone 15.
Bonjour. Kelvin here again. I just wanted to just kind of speak on education a little bit, and I just want to thank you, Len Gardner, for being a voice for our 28 communities. That, you know, whether you have a school on First Nations and for kids that go to school off reserve, you know, there's what it comes down to is funding, basically. You know, they term that as nominal role. And, you know, being a firsthand, having the firsthand experience of being a boarding parent for some of our kids that went to school in Kenora, you know, I saw firsthand that, you know, after the 30-day rule, you know, they retained these students. And that's where they kept their funding. And after these 30 days, honestly, they didn't care about these kids because they got the money. And what it came down to was education important and vital at those times? No, not really. It was about money. And, you know, so that's what it comes down to, is it's all about money and the drive for it. So, you know, I'm just to hear you speak on what's happening on reserve and off reserve for our kids that are going to school to get a better education is, you know, we need stronger voices. So, you know, I want to thank you, Len, for continuing that voice and to be a strong advocate for our community kids, because essentially that's what it comes down to is, you know, education. You know, speaking for the kids on reserve, you know, language and culture goes along with, and that's the, you know, that's the Western approach, is to being that voice at those tables, and you know, keep encouraging you to keep up the good work. So, Miigwetch.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, cultural chiefs and staff for your reports. Thank you very much, very much. Social chiefs, we're almost done. I know that we're running a bit late. We just had to change the agenda a little bit today, but social chiefs can come and do a quick report. And we have the environmental chiefs, and then we will close the National Assembly. Yeah, I'll get the questions ready. You're chief. Yeah, you're the chair. You have that mic over there. You can sit here and then grab that portable mic.
Bonjour. Menwewe gonebik. Dejnikas pe bamategi jigu ke maingene kwens ke nigane benesi ken digu washash kdutem kitchwalong dunji metegan dejetigui Chief Cariatides Norwegian from Kikichwanong Anishinaabe Nation, and I'm the chair for the Social Chiefs. And I'm going to be providing a very a brief update. I'm going to do some of the highlights that have been provided for me from social and from health. So first, I want to acknowledge our our host community of Miigwetch and being in their territory, so Miigwetch for that. So the first item that's on the update is the final settlement agreement between Canada, the AFN, Chiefs of Ontario, and Anishinaabe Nation regarding reform of Canada's First Nations Child and Family Services Program. This is the program through which Canada funds on-reserve child and family services. So the key points for that is the social chiefs met on August 12th to discuss this development and to come up with recommendations to provide to our fellow chiefs in assembly. Highlights are the FSAs intended to resolve the discrimination and end discrimination through the tribunal case. There's been various engagements since May of 2024. The Treaty 3 Social Department has hosted multiple leadership meetings and the draft FSA was released, hosted 4 directional virtual meetings with Treaty 3 technicians and Treaty 3's FSA delegation team to discuss and update any further movement on FSA agreement and what it means for Treaty 3. On September 4th, 2023, Grand Council Treaty 3 circulated to Treaty 3 chiefs and agency leads a detailed analysis of the FSA prepared for Treaty 3 leadership by JFK Law. So the big things that are forthcoming is the votes. There's going to be votes on the FSA. That's the final settlement agreement. The coup SCA is taking place on October 10th in Toronto, and that can be attended virtually or in person. The new date for the AFN SCA is October 16th to the 18th in Calgary, and that's the AFN vote again on the FSA. Some of the guidance that's been provided to the social department is to have 2 meetings to discuss in further detail where we stand as a nation and the process of voting. The dates for that is October 7th, 9 to 12 Central Standard Time. That information will be shared. Dr. Cindy Blackstock and coup technicians and ORC will attend virtually. October 8th is the final Treaty 3 Chiefs meeting on the FSA before the coup and AFN SCAs. So that's the special chiefs assemblies that are forthcoming. So that's the updates. There's been information that's been shared in relation to the final settlement agreement with our leadership. There's information in our binders, and there's also the technicians at the booth that can answer any. August 26th, both tables brought together a wide range of organizations and departments within Grand Council Treaty 3 to help with the organizations. The next meeting for the Youth and Transition Table will take place at the end of October 2024. Some key recommendations from the tables for the social department leads are: 1, strengthen the youth and transition and social tables, encourage ongoing collaboration among the workers, directors, and managers to ensure these tables effectively bridge service gaps and deliver coordinated support to vulnerable youth. 2, advocate for systemic change. So chiefs to advocate at both provincial and federal levels for systemic reform to ensure Indigenous youth with complex needs receive comprehensive, culturally appropriate transition plans. 3 is a youth detox center in Treaty 3. There's been a need identified for a youth detox center that's been emerging as a critical issue. The Youth and Transition in meeting of August 1st, 2024, this was identified. There's an increasing number of youth struggling with substance abuse, addiction, and lack of appropriate placement options for these youth that are actively using substances. Most treatment centers or programs are unable to admit them due to the associated health risks, leaving a gap in care that urgently needs addressing. The social department has been researching into already existing youth detox treatment centers and conduct feasibility studies with other available programs in Treaty 3. So there's a elders and leadership gathering scheduled for advancing the implementation of a Benochi Nakunigewan, and there's a save the date poster It's for November 19th to the 20th in Thunder Bay. There's also a Abenochi Naknagiwan 4-directional workshop synthesis report that's been compiled by JFK Law for Grand Council Treaty 3. This will be reviewed at the Elders and Leadership Gathering. So that is your social update. How quick is that? Hey? Time. Question?
Just a quick question for Richard.
Got something I could throw at this guy?
No, I'm just wondering if Grand Council will be representing themselves at the coup.
I'm not aware of that. I can't answer that. I don't, because sometimes we're in, sometimes we're kind of out. But in this instance, I don't think so, or unless I haven't heard any differently.
We have a meeting in October 7th and 8th. The 7th meeting is technician and leadership. That will be heard from why Caring Society is saying no to this agreement. And also will ask who, why you guys supporting. So this will be 2 separate meetings happening in one day. So Cindy will be presenting why she's saying no. So we can hear that, and then who, including the ORCs attending, and then we'll discuss the technician on whatever chiefs of or social chief ask us to work on feasibility study on the financial numbers. So we will report that to chief, and next day chief will meet and decide what our stance on. Okay.
Yeah, Chief, I think it's fair. Like the dollar figure that I heard coming out of there, I think it's it's going to be okay. The only other thing I wanted to say too is with the AFN, I think we're going to have to make a decision right quickly on if we're going to accept the funding for childcare stuff, because it's like everybody else. I think we're going to get a change in government here pretty quick, and I got a feeling the money's not going to be flowing as fast and freely as it has been. So we have to really think very hard and fast about exactly what we're going to do here, because I'm sure there's going to be some austerity measures going to be put in place by the Conservatives, and they're going to get in. I think all of Canada realizes that. So so we have to make some real quality decisions here in a very, very short time. So if you're going to be there, I think, you should, I think, be there to hear what has to be said at the AFN Assembly in Calgary. And I would urge the chiefs to be there, and then just listen to, what was negotiated, and then it's, for those particular dollars, because it's substantial, but we have to, if we can't sit on the sidelines, we have to be, I think, part of this whole scenario. And that's what I got to say about that. So,
And I think it's important to note, like, the October 7th and October 8th dates are our final 2 meetings with our Grand Council Tree leadership to discuss this specifically before the vote happens. So those are important dates to have noted for further discussion and dialogue on the position either we're going to collectively take or individual vote. I'm not sure how we'll proceed, but I think at those dates, it's important to have those dates down.
Okay.
All right, so the last update is the health update. There's been some relationship building with funding partners that's taken place via technical tables and senior official meetings. Senior official meetings were held in the spring to share updates on health transformation. Another senior officials meeting is being planned for later this fall. To date, 20 out of 28 community engagement sessions have been completed. 2 more are scheduled, with 6 remaining. There's graphic recordings from the community engagement sessions that are hanging on the banners, and you'll see them in the back of the engagement sessions and the vision for community priorities and vision for health. Complete list of engagement sessions can be found in the health department newsletter available at the health booth. The Elders Health Law Gathering was held this past June in Thunder Bay. This gathering served as an opportunity to meet with elders and knowledge keepers to share an update on the health engagement and to identify key priorities for the health law. The elders highlighted the need for health equity, recognition of traditional healers, and barriers to transportation for accessing medical care. At the Spring Assembly, the Chiefs Assembly passed a resolution declaring a state of emergency for mental health and addictions. Following that, the ministry committed $2 million to support the ongoing work of the Drug Task Force, development of the National Safe Community Strategy, Gamikon Bimatiziwan, and community-based supports. Ongoing advocacy to resource communities to address health and social emergencies is underway, and a technical table is being established via health transformation. The goal of the Anishinaabe Workforce Development Initiative is to increase overall recruitment, retention, and education of Anishinaabe healthcare professionals in Treaty 3. The health team held a health human resource technical table over the summer with various Ontario, Manitoba, and Canada technicians. The Spring Assembly included a resolution addressing NIHB patient transportation rates and reducing accessibility of care in Treaty 3. As a result of that meeting, Grant Council Treaty 3 secured aggregated NIHB data to support a transportation costing survey. The team is collaboratively developing a joint action plan with Ministry of Health and Indigenous Services to address barriers for patient transportation. As part of the department's efforts to support inclusive access to care, the health team has several initiatives underway. Directory to support 2S LGBTQIAP+ is accessing gender-affirming healthcare in underdevelopment in partnership with EverSick, Arts and LGBT Youth Line, supporting resources for parents of 2S IAP+ youth and creating inclusive and safe environments. The second annual Slay in May was hosted by Couchiching First Nation, which is a gathering for 2S LGBTQIAP+ youth in Treaty 3. This event focused on storytelling, building healthy relationships, safe sexual health, and 2S LGBTQIAP+ needs within Moen. Advisor Elder Tom Favel from Wabagoon First Nation. There was a sacred fire and feast, and Tom spoke to the students about how their training in the telecommunications field of work opens up for a future for them and others that will influence in a positive way. Debachamoen has created a ripple effect not only in expanding connectivity in the territory, but in job creation, skills development, and hope. I will turn it over to our technician for a detailed update.
Miigwetch. So as part of the resolution under Debachamoen, there is some work happening for workforce development, and that focuses on developing line technicians, on splicing training, and helping support the transition to fiber optic connectivity now that it's being available. And so this has included partnerships with 7 Generations, like we saw with the graduation of the 8 line technicians in Quetico Provincial Park. And so some of the assumptions are that Grand Council Treaty 3 and 7 Generations are working collaboratively to develop programming to support interest and skills development in fiber broadband. And the point that Debbie always makes is that doesn't the bucket for the hydro, or the little bucket that people sit in when they go up to the hydro poles, doesn't that look so cool? And wouldn't it be great to have a career in that? Further programs and skills are being developed as needed to support the economic opportunity with high-speed internet within the communities. 7 Generations has secured funding to continue delivering programming in 2025, and they're looking to consider if there are other programs to support the development of STEM and digital skills. And then on our last slide, we have an overview of, oh my goodness, that's really tiny. But that is the work plan over the next year and a half on curriculum development, community engagement, and, sorry, one second. So yes, community engagement, awareness and outreach, curriculum development, program recruitment, training delivery, employment onboarding, mentorship and lessons. And so with the graduation of the line techs this past fall, we were able to support the purchase of tools that would allow them to enter into the workforce and be employment ready. And we're hoping to continue that by the development of micro-credentials in partnership with Canandore College and offering some different programs for the different positions available for the Bajamawan. So with that, that concludes our health and social update. Miigwetch.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much, Chief and staff. Our last one is environmental. Just a quick update I think they have. Get the environmental representatives. Thank you, Richard. It's been a long day, I know. Thank you for persevering and sitting up here and getting it done. So
Chair? Hello? Hello?
oh, sorry.
Hi, Chair. I'm just curious now. I'm wondering, just with the, I guess, the lack of attendance, wonder if it'd be worthwhile to postpone this update for tomorrow. I know there's a lot. There's no chair. You don't have a co-chair. And I think about the discussion that's going to be derived from this. We all want to get home before the sun goes down, and just want to put that out there for the chiefs to consider, Miigwetch.
Are the chiefs okay with postponing these two reports? We'll do them first thing in the morning. Are we good with that? So then we'll continue in the National Assembly tomorrow with the environmental report. Okay, so we'll do that in the morning. So we're going to close now then the National Assembly. We can't close it now till tomorrow. We'll have a closing song though. Tomorrow we have to finish that, right? Yeah. Miigwetch, miigwetch. Safe travels, everybody. We'll see you all tomorrow at 9 o'clock.